How's it going? Today I want to talk a little bit about the progress in the orchard and a little bit about what we're seeing on the trees and in the field here, and wrap up on the first phase of irrigation. So it feels really good to be just about done with that project. Um, with the warm, dry spell we had, the ground had gotten far enough down that we had to do some watering. The surface replenishment has been pretty good over the past couple of days, so I'm not worried about it for now. And obviously, I shouldn't in Oregon be worried about it this time of year, but good to make sure your plants have plenty of water. So, start with this tree behind me here. It's a really prolific fruit-bearing tree. One of the trees that we bought that was the larger size, $35 instead of $30 average, unless I found, I have found quite a few, but sale-wise from online retailers. This was actually purchased at a local nursery in person. I had to have it. It was big. It was the right price. It was not root bound, and we did get some fruit off it last year, and they were delicious. This is a Methley plum, so it is an Asian type plum, and it is very tasty. It's for this area, it's kind of like, I think last year we ended up getting it middle of June, early to middle of June. So where we have planted in the orchard is close to accurate, but it's got some great. Well, you can see the lower branches got predation from deer earlier when they were in the orchard. I talked a little bit about that. The orchard, we've only lost 1 or 2 plants from that, which I'm very thankful for. Some that have taken some serious damage, but I think we'll make it. But yeah, this guy, they ate off all the leaves and a fair amount of other stuff. But you can see, I'm going to bring you in close here, that the fruit growth is coming on really nicely. I'm very excited for this plum again this year. So it's just a very juicy, very flavorful, sweet plum, and pretty early for a plum too, which is great. I've talked before, but not necessarily for a while and not at great length, about how the structure of the orchard, the way we've planted and the plants that we've chosen, is designed to give us a continuous harvest as much as we can through the year, instead of being your apples are going to be 3 months, and that's a broad crop for traditional, and then your plums are going to be these 2 months, and your pears will be this month or these 2 months. So we have plums that should be in season for, I believe, a total of 4.5 or 5 months between all of the rows in our climate. And as much as we can, that's what we want to aim for, is expanding the season of each of the types of fruit so that people can have access to fresh whatever, throughout the summer and through the year. So I'm gonna take you real quick down here. I just finished out some of the irrigation. So the bottom 4 rows did not have irrigation last year because they were not planted. They had maybe 2 or 3 things planted in. So I'll just show you what I have and talk a little bit more about what the design of the system is. So you can see up the hill behind me, you can see kind of the progression of this, nice car there, of this irrigation system. So those are all up spigots. So the water comes down the hill, hits those, comes up, and then supplies water into the drips system. So there's a total of 16 rows, so 16 spots where they're coming up. Each of those is coming up as 1 inch in Schedule 40, and that entire system comes down in 1 inch off of a 2 inch, I believe, main line. So the volume of water that we can pull from our uphill tanks is enough to run several 1 inch sections at a time. So this is alpha phase. There'll be a beta and even gamma, not Greek. I think it's gamma. So three phases to our planned planting of the orchard. and that corresponds to the 3 major sections. And then we'll keep going after those are done and filled, but those are the 3 major ones that, you know, for me to feel like we're really ready to drive a great destination for people's food purchases is going to be those 3. Alpha is a great start. So you can see going up the hill there, those stand pipes. Each of those stand pipes comes off, as I said, tees off and then comes up and then hits this, converts down to a 3/4. We've got a garden hose spigot, not an expensive part as far as metal goes. And then we have a backflow preventer, a Y filter, and a pressure reducer going into a converter into our irrigation pipe. And I've opted for a bit of a more expensive irrigation pipe for a couple of reasons. So this drip line is graded to withstand a number of years and is very well reviewed for doing that. Under sunlight. It can also be placed under ground. It has a special chambering design that prevents dirt from being sucked back into, if there's negative pressure, being sucked back into the line, and also to provide a pressure compensation drip. What that means is if you have dips and ridges along your line for your irrigation, this hose will compensate and you will receive the same amount of water at a peak as you do a valley. That's very important on my hillside. This is not flat ground, and a lot of irrigation emitters are going to push more water at a low spot, and then you're not going to get even watering. Your plants are going to either die from too much or die from too little. I don't like dead plants. So the neat thing about this line, about this system, is that I was afraid I was going to have to pressurize it because I don't have as much drop from the cisterns as I would like. Right here, we're at about somewhere between 50 and 20 feet in drop. So for head pressure, if the tanks are full, it's going to be 20. It'll be closer to the low teens if they're mostly empty, just from the height of the water column. And that gravity process is what gets enough water movement and pressure to fill these. The neat thing is this hose is rated pretty high for pressure, and I have a pressure reducer on here, but I haven't needed, like, it's not doing anything, because what I'm getting for pressure at the very bottom, and this is roughly where the bottom was last year, one set up, one row up, it was only around 20 psi. So this pressure reducer here reduces to 25 psi. So it's not activated unless I pressurize this line. But even at the very top, where there's only about 5 feet of drop with the tanks are almost empty, so maybe 15 feet at most of drop, probably more like 2 to 3 feet, and then add 10 onto that because they're 10-foot tall tanks. So that irrigation pressure is very low, but I'm still getting a great consistent drip just off of the flow of water. So the design of this irrigation line is it's awesome. It compensates for the pressure and permits the water to flow at a good rate. I think they're rated for 1 gallon per hour per emitter, which is a good spacing if you're planting in between your trees, which I am. And yeah, so that's the design of it. And as you can see, there's this one that we just looked at, and then there's 3 more going down the hillside here. So that's the end of it. I have to fill back in I have to test it, make sure there's no leaks, fill back in the trench, and then alpha phase irrigation is ready to rock and roll for the year. Last year was a real stress because I didn't have this in when we hit that hot, dry spell at the end of April going into May. It was very physically painful hauling water all over the place by hand. So this is awesome. So I just want to share that. That's very pleasing. And then The fence line now goes down that hill all the way over to our neighbors. There's one of their greenhouses. So that's done. As I said, no deer coming through yet, and that's a real blessing. So we're going to continue that down along their property once I've gotten approval from them to do so, and have that ring the whole orchard. Eventually I'd like to convert it into climbing vine space, because the thing with deer is they can jump up to 7 feet vertical, and they can jump a little ways horizontal, but they will not, they're not going to do that if they can't see the other side to see where they're landing. And they, so essentially I can put in the infrastructure now for a deer fence and then convert that into growable space, and then that will also give the neighbors some additional privacy if it's kiwi or whatever I decide to put in. So just a real win-win, and then they can have whatever fruit they want from the side that's their side of the fence. So that's the plan there. A lot of other fruit trees. Stop by this one, see if it's got anything on it. Same thing here. A lot of the lower stuff was eaten off, as you can see, by the deer. And this one did flower some, not very much. I'm looking to see if I can spot any little fruit growing on it. This one's a early golden plum, and at least 1 or 2 years younger than the one we just looked at. It should be bearing earlier, so we should see it should be bearing earlier than that Shiro by a little bit. So we would see if there was plums on here, probably. I'm not seeing any. Some of the cherries definitely have some, and some of the cherries are still flowering, and some that are that fruit later in the season have already flowered. So that's an interesting piece of the way that these trees work, these plants work, is that it's not tied. Those two aren't linked, intrinsically. I've got some friends down here I want you to meet. See if we can catch some of them here. So we've got a little bumblebee in there. Oh, there he goes. Got native honeybee in there. I don't know if you can see him in there. We've got a honeybee up here. So if you remember our videos from last year, this is my borage. Beautiful, beautiful plant, and as far as a source of early pollen for the bees, it is fantastic. Straw flower also out, marigold, poppy, also out. You can kind of see those in the row over here. So yeah, orchard's already beautiful. I do need to get it mowed between the rows. Other things that are blooming right now profusely as far as trees go: apples, pears, quinces. Quince flowers are actually really pretty. I'll see if I can get some pictures up from that. We've got blooms on autumn olives and the other member of the Eleaginous family. So that's this guy right here. Really, really kind of a delicate, pretty little flower. So yeah, the orchard's just gorgeous right now. The hillside's very beautiful right now. Here, I've got to share this one with you. This is one of my favorite plants out here that's not a fruit producer. I'm using them for nitrogen fixation. So here is my favorite Ceanothus, which I wish you could smell it in addition to seeing it, but look at that. What a beautiful plant. And it's been blooming like that for weeks already. So another great early pollen source that lasts pretty much into the summer. This one bloomed all year last year. So yeah, not a lot else to really update on. Just getting a lot of maintenance and routine stuff taken care of for the farm. This is one of the fences that we're going to convert into grape row space. You can see some of the grow tubes behind me for that. So yeah, next time we have an opportunity, I'll try and get some great flower pictures put up. It's wonderful, and I love to share. Better lighting maybe, and then I'll keep updating on what we're doing in the orchard this year as we go into, kind of a burst of growth and a burst of hopefully activity out here. So I'll catch you guys next time.